When Chicago was first incorporated in 1837, its adopted motto was and still is the Latin phrase, Urbs in Hortu, city in a garden. 32 years later, in 1869, the state legislature annexed North Lawndale into Chicago and created Douglas Park. We were born together, and the park is the gemstone of our community. But the greening didn't stop at our birth. If you follow Cermak Road from its beginning at McCormick Place to its end in Oak Brook, North Lawndale has Cermak's only stretch of greenery. During World War I and II, our ancestors fighting in Europe were exposed to a freedom they had never known and developed a greater determination to gain that freedom here in America. While that was happening overseas, back in America, victory gardens were being planted across the nation. These gardens produced food for both here and Europe and helped win those wars. Today, although they're hard work, our community gardens and parks bring food and beauty to a community that needs both. On a smaller scale, they reflect the history of America, the beauty of Douglas Park's contribution to Urbs in Hortu, and the produce of the victory gardens that helped save the lives of World War II-era North Lawndalian families still in Europe. As we go through the day, surrounded by the negative signs of an economically depressed community, let's take a little time to notice our beauty and determination. Let's celebrate North Lawndale. And let's celebrate North Lawndale. We deserve it.
When I got off the freeway at Homan, but as I was going up and down the streets, and I saw the boulevard, and I saw the beautiful houses and the vacant lots, you know, for me, when I see a vacant lot, I don't see a vacant lot. I see like a garden that really is like popped up and fully done. Who else has that type of vision here, right? So I fell in love with North Lawndale, and right now I live on Douglas and Homan. The very first thing that I did was I put cardboard all over my grass, on the front and in the back, to be able to kill it. And then I created these edible gardens. And the first person that I met around greening was Dr. Israel. And the reason why I moved to North Lawndale was they had a project on the North Lawndale Greening Committee site that said the greening of North Lawndale. And I said, I want to be part of that. And this is such an extraordinary community. And over the years, as I got to meet more and more of the organizations in North Lawndale that specialize in greening, I just fell in love more with the people, the commitment, and what it is that North Lawndale is. I mean, we really are a hidden gem right in front of everybody in the city. And we know that we're lucky to be here. And we love our community. We love the greening aspect of it.
First of all, when I went to Target to get the drinks for tonight, a young woman was checking me out, and she said she saw my card, and it was the Chicago Botanic Garden card, and she said, "Oh, the Chicago Botanic Garden, is that the one on Ogden?" And I was like, yes, it is. Yes, it is. And that was a first for me, because everyone always says, "Oh, is that the one in Lincoln Park? Oh, is that the one in is that the one in the suburbs? Oh, is that?" So to hear the Chicago Botanic Garden associated with North Lawndale after being in the neighborhood for all of these years is just one of the special things that this building has really enabled us to do, which is funny because we've had gardens and farms here in North Lawndale forever, but there's something about a building that makes it feel like we're not going anywhere. We're sticking around. We're going to be here for the long haul, and we have been. So I brought some show and tell items over on the table. The Chicago Botanic Garden has been greening North Lawndale since 1988. So it's doing school gardens, community gardens, and things like that for a really long time. And when we really started to develop a relationship with North Lawndale was in 2005, when our friends from Neighborhood Housing Services and our friends from NeighborSpace invited us to develop the piece of land. There's my big board. Oh, there's a picture. Oh, here we go. Right, this thing. There's a big picture. There was this beautiful vacant plot right next door to the Neighborhood Housing Services offices. And that's me, actually. It's like Bigfoot. I'm like this. It's like the only photo of me ever. And so we neighborhood housing services, and our good friends Velma Johnson, our good friends Charles Leeks, our good friend Dr. Israel, our good friend Doretha Penn invited us to come and see would we like to start a youth farm here in North Lawndale. And so in 2005, we partnered with After School Matters to open our first Windy City Harvest site in the city, and that was even before Windy City Harvest existed. About 4 years later, we partnered with North Lawndale Employment Network, the Chicago Christian Industrial League, and the Botanic Garden partnered to actually form a separate nonprofit organization that was called Windy City Harvest. It had its own 501c3, it had its own executive director, and we had some land up on just north of Roosevelt, a little further east. And that didn't work out because the land was contaminated for lots of different reasons. It just ended up not working out. But the Chicago Botanic Garden said, we like this idea and we want to continue to try and make it happen. So Windy City Harvest became a department of the Chicago Botanic Garden. And currently, so that was probably in 2007, and currently we run 4 different programs, which Dantrell and Ketaurah are graduates of, and Annamaria is a graduate of. And Lucia is a graduate of. So I feel like even though I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. There were 400 people in my high school. There were 5,000 people in the whole town. Our nearest neighbor was a dairy farm. So I feel like I'm back to my roots here on the farm, except we're farming different things. We're farming fish and lettuce instead of dairy cattle, or dairy cows. But it's been such a joy to be a part of the North Lawndale community for so long, and the Chicago Botanic Garden is proud to have been a part of the North Lawndale community for so long. And I'll turn that over. And guess what, North Lawndale? It's your birthday. We're going to party like it's your birthday. So, yeah. So now, I'm going to turn the mic over to Mr. Dantrell DeHart, who's going to tell you his story of North Lawndale.
Hey, everybody. Y'all can hear me clearly?
Yes.
My name is Dantrell. I work for Windy City Harvest as the PCC grower and well as the Kingdom Farm grower. I've been in the North Lawndale community my whole life, and I was raised on 16th and Holman, and I lived on the 1500 block of Trumbull for 19 years. And my family is from here. I was born in the area, so I pretty much know all the ins and outs about the area, and I work out at the gym sometimes. I stopped going ever since I got the job. I don't got enough time. But yeah, I got involved with urban agriculture roughly around 5 years ago, and I was just looking for a job opportunity. I was a 14-week intern at a place called Growing Power. And after the 14 weeks, I knew it was coming to an end. I was like, man, I started liking it, and I wanted to know more about it. So I was in my GED class, and they had a day where it's like a job fair. And actually a guy that used to work for Windy City named Stacy Chemist came out, and he recruited me, and he invited me to an info session. And I came to the info session, and I put Growing Power on my resume because I had 14 weeks experience. And they accepted me on, and I've been doing agriculture work ever since. Like every job I ever had was based around agriculture. And just to have this facility in the North Lawndale area and to work in the area that I grew up in it means a whole lot to me and a lot to the people in my community. Now, like I can show a lot of the people my age and that's younger than me that see me on a daily basis, like, man, this is what I do. And I can actually bring them to the site and show them and not just tell them like, oh yeah, I do this and I can't show them. And it also give me the opportunity to bring my daughter here on the weekends because she's right down the street on Cermak and Central Park. So, I mean, it gave me the opportunity to spread my gift with agriculture throughout my community, inside my community. Because a lot of the jobs that I had was outside the community. And now that this is in the neighborhood, it's opened the doors for a lot of people that's my age, a lot of people that's unemployed. I mean, it made a big difference in this whole entire area. And a lot of people that see me walking down the street when I'm coming from work, they'll be like, oh, that's the dude, that's the growing guy, or whatever. And I mean, it means a lot to be a positive role model in this community, because it ain't a lot of people out here that's trying to do stuff positive. And I worked with a lot of people. I even worked with the Gardeneers. They had a site right on 16th and 15th and Spalding through North Lawndale. I was actually working with a guy named Adam Mick, volunteer some days. And I was working with one of the apprentices that graduated from Winnie City. I believe his name Orlando? Rolando, yeah. So I'll stop by on my days when I'm off work. And, you know, a lot of the kids that go to North Lawndale, they recognize me. They're like, man, I ain't know you did this work. I'm like, yeah, man, I do this full time. So, I mean, that's my story, I guess. And happy 150th birthday, North Lawndale. And Ketaurah, my neighbor.
Stop giving spoilers, okay? Hello, my name is Ketaurah. I'm the Farm on Ogden program assistant here at Windy City Harvest. So I work mostly with the youth farm students and with our VegRx program. I've been living in North Lawndale my entire life. I grew up also on Holman and still live over there on Holman. How I joined Windy City Harvest, I was in high school, it was 2009. I had a friend, her name was Sierra, and she came up to me and she's like, hey, they're in the hallway if you want a summer job. So I'm like, okay. I didn't know what the name of it was, or I didn't know a thing about it, but I just went over there and I like signed my name and did this. And then we went to the orientation, and I was surprised to figure out that it was a farm and that I was going to be farming because I didn't like bugs. So I'm like, okay, well, you get yourself into, but like all my friends was doing it and they're like, just do it. So I'm like, okay. I didn't know if I was going to get the job or not, but you know, apparently I did. It was really fun though. I got over my fear of bugs, you know. I'm still scared of spiders, but like the little roly-poly-olies and all the other stuff is fine. Yeah, so I got over my fear of bugs, and I met some really cool people. I've been in youth farm since 2009 until I graduated high school in 2012, and then I went away to college. Then I was looking for a job after I came back, and I got in touch with Eliza, and she's like, hey, do you guys, you know, are you still looking for a job? And I'm like, yeah. So then she was telling me about the VegRx position. And it was cool. So if you guys not familiar with VegRx, look, plugging in my program right now. We give out free vegetables to the community, to people who have SNAP benefits. So it's free nutrition classes and free cooking demos. Really cool. So I started doing that, and I love it. So I came back for my second year. It's really, to me, I feel like this building is really important to the community, just so we can have access to fresh vegetables, organic vegetables, because North Lawndale is a food desert, so there's not a grocery store in our range. The only place we can go to for fruit is the corner stores, which is not a good thing. We have like more liquor stores than grocery stores around here. So I really think that having this building here really is helping flourish in our community. And it's also a really good place for people to come and just hang out, you know, like a safe place.
So if you know and can articulate what the benefits of kale, raise your hand. If you know what kale is and can articulate the benefits of it to our health. You know what kale is? Okay, some people, yeah. So what about a carrot? You know what a carrot is? I know the benefits of it. Okay, some people. What about a tomato? You know what a tomato is? What about a blueberry? You know what a blueberry is? Can articulate why it's important for our health? Good. So thank you for that. I'll get to that in a moment. But I'm going to start with my story, and I'm going to start way back because I think it helps you understand the kind of vision for Gardeneers and how it came about. So I came to North Lawndale for the first time, and I didn't plan this script, but I did plan this part because I looked how long it had been. I came 3,930 days ago for the first time. That's 10 years, 10 months, and 5 days. And so on August 18th, 2008, I started teaching. I was the founding science teacher at CSW Career Academy. It was the culinary arts portion of CCA. Some of you might remember it. It's no longer housed there, but I was the founding science teacher there in 2008. And so that's really where I started teaching and where my story begins. I taught all the students in the school. I was the only science teacher, and so I was in one classroom with them often trying to teach biology, chemistry, environmental science, all of the sciences to all the students because it was an alternative high school for 16 to 21-year-old students who were getting credit recovery. So it wasn't a biology class only, it was all the classes. Mixed into one. And so it was kind of a crazy situation trying to figure out how to best teach these youth holistically, truly, authentically, science. So I was searching for things. And at the same time that fall, I was sitting at the cafeteria table with some of my students and we were reviewing for an upcoming exam. And I'm eating my lunch, and all my students had gone through the cafeteria line and were eating their lunch. And Alicia looks over to me, and she says, "Miss Tsupros, what are you eating?" And I looked down, and I said, "Alicia, this is a blueberry." Yeah. So here I was, and my student, she was 21 years old. She was working really hard to get her high school diploma, mother of 3, and she did not know, because she had never had the opportunity to eat or cherish or love a blueberry. And that was a light bulb moment for me. One, it made me become hyper aware of what my students were eating, what they had access to. You spoke of not a lot of access to fresh fruits and vegetables because of the corner stores, and how it affected their learning, how it affected their behavior to each other. And it was significant. And from then on out, I said, food, how can I make food a foundation of their education so they not only can understand why it's so important, but they can feel the benefits of it every single day. So we threw out those books, right? The chemistry book and the biology book and all those science I was trying to teach in one classroom, and we said, let's plant a garden. Let's teach all of the things we need to know about science together through growing things. So I'm going to skip to this really beautiful moment in all of this. And it was that spring, it was March, it was a warm day in March because we used to have warm days in March. And I really, by the way, the blueberry, the thing I asked you at the very beginning where most of you raised your hand with what a blueberry was, that was me getting back to the point of the blueberry. And Alicia not knowing. But one of my most favorite memories is we were building the garden. So before it became a lot next to CCA, it was an open green space. And we planted several garden boxes. And I remember I was working with the students one day. We were building the boxes. We were hammering and sawing and filling them with compost. And I stepped away to, I think, hook up a hose. And all of a sudden, I hear screams and shrills. And I was like, what is going on? Oh my gosh, what's happening? I turned the corner, and all of my students were in pure glee because they had discovered earthworms and were fighting and throwing them at each other and chasing each other around with them. And you would never have guessed they were 16 or 21 years old because they were having the joy of a 5 or 6-year-old just enjoying nature and being in nature and experiencing it. And so that's when I realized the impact, the significance of having green space. It's profound in the life of a child, for all of us, but really significant in the life of a child. To have that, to grow with that, to build empathy for the earth, for each other, it's something that every single child in North Lawndale deserves. And I feel very privileged and fortunate to be here doing this work, growing school gardens now in North Lawndale. And I am so happy to wish North Lawndale a very, very happy 150th birthday, and also thank North Lawndale for showing me so many things and creating a path in which I can do my life's work. So thank you and happy birthday.
So my story in North Lawndale is kind of, I came to Chicago as a grad student from India, and so States and Chicago and everything was very new for me. And I was trying to figure out where have I landed, and I'm trying to figure out which classes I'm going to take and where is my building. And that's when I heard about SAIC coming into the neighborhood. SAIC was invited into the neighborhood and had started setting up a classroom and artisan residency studio in Homan Square. And I found myself coming here to check that out. And that's actually my first neighborhood that I really managed to get a hang of or get to understand was North Lawndale. I started spending time here. I spent that entire fall semester researching and working with the school, but also just going out and meeting people, going into the greening committee meetings in the basement of the library and just landing up there without really knowing why I was there, and just trying to learn and understand what's happening in the neighborhood, where, and I just kind of felt that I belonged here in a way, that this was a home away from home, far away. And I've moved over all these years that I've been in Chicago. I've moved and lived in different neighborhoods, but nowhere have I been for more than a year or a year and a half. And I move, and I'm about to move again from my current neighborhood. Sorry, May. We just found out we live in the same neighborhood. But I find myself in North Lawndale more than in other neighborhoods. So this is really my neighborhood and my home in Chicago in all aspects. Yeah. And I don't know, I'm just talking a little bit about Oaks of North Lawndale. We started this project in the neighborhood about 2.5 years ago. We were talking to residents, and we were talking about how people would notice there's a visible difference between the neighborhood, between Oak Park and River Forest and all the other neighborhood areas and North Lawndale when it comes to open space and it comes to greening. And we realized then that North Lawndale has one of the lowest tree canopies. It's got a 16.6% tree canopy. And when you look at neighboring Oak Park and River Forest, which is 58%, there is clearly something missing and there's something not going right. And we were here and we were starting to talk to Annamaria and Dr. Israel and Kevin Sutton at the Foundation of Homan Square and Rodney at NLCC, and we were just like, we want to be part of this change that you guys are trying to go towards, this greening revolution that you all want to bring into the neighborhood. And so Oaks of North Lawndale is something that just responded to something that's going on and happening in the neighborhood. And we're just glad to be here and be collaborators and partners and be part of this neighborhood. Yeah, that's it. And happy birthday, North Lawndale. Yeah. Annamaria is telling me that I should make an announcement here. We just had an opportunity. He got reached out to by the office of Yo-Yo Ma. He's a world-renowned cellist, and he heard about the work that's happening in North Lawndale in terms of greening. He's seen the quality of life plan also, and Oaks of North Lawndale through Pedro Reyes, who worked with us 2 years ago to make those shovels. And he wants to come to North Lawndale on June 21st and play the cello while we dig holes and plant trees. And this is going to happen on the corner of Kedzie and Fillmore, so it's going to be an exciting day. Mark your calendars.
I am Samantha Miller. I moved to Lawndale when I was 5 years old with my mom and my twin sister. And I lived there for 40 years. And then I moved to Austin neighborhood about 5 years ago. Due to circumstances that I couldn't control. So my plan, I love this neighborhood. I was speaking to Eliza, and I was telling her that I know everything around here. Austin, it just doesn't do it for me. My grocery store is Fair Play, and the currency exchange is here, and it's like Lawndale is in between everything that I have to do. So I plan on coming back when it's feasibly possible. Faith in Place, I got with Faith in Place when at a trying time for me. I had worked 20 years for a social service agency, and it just shut its doors. we did get warning, and they took care of us somewhat, but it still was heartbreaking and disappointing. I was looking for something in a faith-based community, faith-based organization rather, and my pastor, Pastor Hatch, he offered me a summer position to do just an audit, a quick audit of a program of his. So I did that, and then he kept forgetting. He said, Samantha, I remember you said you want to work with a faith-based organization, and I said, yeah. And so he said, I have one for you. Let's see if it fits. So I met Veronica Kyle, Director of Outreach for the Chicago area for the Faith in Place program, and interviewed, met her, and then my supervisor, Lorena Lopez. She's no longer with us. And so then I got an interview with the executive director, and here I am today. 5 years, I think? July 2014 is when I started. And so ever since I've been, going around to different houses of worship, talking about smart energy and other faith in place programs. To be honest, it was a job, and I needed work to pay my bills, so I did it. I was not very interested in saving energy or gardening or anything, but the more I got into it, the more I started enjoying it. So Faith in Place offers, like you said, our 4 program areas. In particular, our sustainable food and land use. We have we provide and support native and plant gardens for houses of worship. We have nature outings where we do habitat restoration. And also we have fun and educational opportunities like book collecting, bird watching, things like that. And we have fun like canoeing and hiking and kayaking. I went kayaking and canoeing for the first time about 2 years ago. Kayaking in Garfield Park, canoeing in Humboldt Park. Kayaking, as you all know, you get in that little boat by yourself and paddle around the lagoon. And it was kind of scary at first, but I did it. Faith in Place, we do what we do because we want to inspire houses of worship, to inspire other houses of worship to take care of our common land, water, and air, and our earth. And so in saying that, we also ask people to fill out petitions for clean energy job growth and education, a carbon-free power sector for Illinois, and to reduce our harmful gas and diesel pollution in our transportation sector. And with that, I would like you all to come to the table and visit me and so I can talk about Faith in Place more, and maybe you all assign a petition. And also to implement all of our petitions, all of our programs in those 4 program areas that Annamaria spoke about, we have a green team model. And you get a green team coach. By the way, all of our programs and services at Faith in Place are at no cost to you, your community, or your congregation. And so you get a green team coach. Right now, I am the green team coach for Stone Temple Baptist Church, and with Annamaria's help and Elvia Rodriguez Osha's help, we are creating a garden at Stone Temple. They have a property adjacent to them, and so it's a city lot, a full city lot, and we're trying to get it together, create a garden. And so that is my first step into gardening. So I know about energy, I know saving energy and going out to nature and taking care of nature, but I know nothing about gardening, so that's my greeting. And happy birthday, happy 150th birthday, North Lawndale.
I bring greetings from North Lawndale Employment Network and Sweet Beginnings, the social enterprise they created. You got my name is Bob Miller. No, I did not grow up in North Lawndale, but I have been here for 2.5 years, and it's been a privilege. Lots of great people, lots of heart. It's a great community. So background a little bit here. To understand Sweet Beginnings, you got to know a little bit about the parent company. And North Lawndale Employment Network, which gets referred to as NLEN all the time, was born 20 years ago right in this community. And it was created by a group of residents and supporters who loved their community and wanted to help positively reshape the future. So they brought in Brenda Palms Barber from Colorado, And she started doing the work of community organizing and very quickly realized that jobs was a huge issue. And without jobs, we couldn't do a whole lot of things. So she focused on getting a jobs program going forward. That whole beginning included people like Robert Steele, Deborah Wesley, the Steins Foundation. There were many, many others. I don't have all the names, but historically, sit down and talk to Brenda sometime, and she'll tell you about all these great, great people that played a role. I found out he might know more about this than I do because he was here at some of the beginning conversations about bringing the bees in and what we do with bees. So the mission of the North Lawndale Employment Network is to improve the earnings potential of the North Lawndale community through innovative employment initiatives that lead to economic advancement and improved quality of life, which takes us to Sweet Beginnings, because Sweet Beginnings is one of those employment initiatives that we started 13 years ago. North Lawndale Employment was providing all kinds of personal development classes, job skills, job seeking skills, how do you fill out a resume, how do you go through an interview, some cognitive behavior development pieces at that time. But what was happening is people would complete those programs and then we'd go looking for a job and there wouldn't be a job available. So Brenda, being the type of woman that she is, wouldn't take that no for an answer. So she said, we're going to build a business that we can use to employ people. So she started Sweet Beginnings. There were several other types of businesses that they tried, and there was some failures along the way. But kind of miraculously, she got introduced by a board member to a beekeeper who loved bees and understood the value and importance of nature and the role that bees play in nature and the lessons that bees can teach us about working and living together. Immediately she got interested in it, studied up on it, and hired that guy to come in and start Sweet Beginnings. And it's been in existence for 13 years, and it's served over 450 citizens from this area, helping them get started on their way to their careers. So let's talk about bees for a minute. And again, the theme is green, and bees obviously play a part in some of the greening of our globe, but very much like plant life and the excitement of the earthworm and that sort of thing, getting connected to nature and recognizing that the world's bigger than just us as an individual, yet how connected we all are and how important it is for us to be connected to all the living things on the earth is a very powerful thing. So bees are an amazing creature. They're about one of 6 social insects, and they have developed a pay it forward and work for the good of all strategy. Teamwork is a way of life for them. The individual bee has a fairly short life cycle, 30 to 40 days, but during its life it takes on key roles that support the good of the many. Some bees are caregivers, some are cleaners, some are builders, some are defenders, some are food gatherers, some are egg fertilizers. All these different roles are available, and the bees find their role, their niche, they make their contribution. If something happens to the hive, and for example, the gatherers are out gathering and a storm hits and they lose a lot of their gatherers, the bees recalibrate, they cross-train, they learn new jobs, they fill in the gap, and the hive lives on. Of course, there has to be somebody in charge, and I know you won't be surprised, it's a queen. And there's only one queen in the hive, but she plays a very important role and helps make those judgments and partnering with nature to know when it's time to turn on making more bees and getting more bees available to do the gathering, and then recognizing the size of the hive, also making sure there's enough bees to go do the gathering to bring in the kind of food that they need, and the honey is the food that they use. Bees work hard raising the next generation, creating food and shelter for them, and they won't live long enough to relax and enjoy the fruits of their labor. They do it on the faith that the next generation's coming. Their efforts are also to help pollinate 30 to 40% of fruits and vegetables that we enjoy today. In the last 30 years, bees have encountered changes in the environment that have negatively impacted their survival. Insecticides, climate change, invading parasites are all contributing to a thing called colony collapse, and they're threatening the bees' very existence. Sweet Beginnings runs 5 urban apiaries in the city of Chicago. 2 are right here in North Lawndale, and it provides much needed support for an urban bee population. That includes food, shelter, and preventive health care to fight off parasites, right? So in exchange, The bees provide Sweet Beginnings with a raw, natural honey, which we use to create jobs. Our employees use the bees' honey to manufacture high quality and all natural tabletop honey, and they also use it to infuse skincare products. We sell these products via our website, pop-up stores, grocery chains, small reseller businesses, corporate events, and private events like weddings. How does this help our employees? Our employees learn work skills, showing up, being on time, ready to learn, respectful for all, engaged in the enterprise. Sounds kind of like the bees, doesn't it? They learn manufacturing skills. There's prep, there's setup, there's standard operating procedures to follow, there's workflow, there's cleanup, there's eliminate waste and do quality control and safety. And guess what? The bees do all those things too through the different roles they have. They learn business skills that are valuable: marketing, merchandising, sales, purchasing, planning, inventory management, delivery, cash handling, and process improvement. They learn people skills, customer service, problem solving, conflict resolution, listening, communication, teamwork. And they learn leadership skills, creating alignment through having a similar mission, vision, and objectives, and also creating commitment and, of course, right attitude, because without attitude, there is no game. So I can't tell you that we take folks through all that in 12 weeks' time and that they're all experts at all of those things, but between our conversations, our teaching, the example of the bees, we help people kind of understand this greater, bigger thing in life and the importance of connectivity. And we help people figure out where they fit in, and we try to help them get connected to the rest of the world and get connected to the job that they need to move forward with their life. Our organization is focused on the future of North Lawndale, and we're committed to helping its residents and its bees overcome the barriers and achieve their full potential. So we say happy 150th birthday to North Lawndale, and we see a bright future.
My name is Shemuel Israel, and I'm the president of North Lawndale Greening Committee. And I came to North Lawndale in 1982 as a result of an invitation by Michael Scott Sr. We had a newspaper stand on Roosevelt in Kidsey, and that's sort of like a barbershop. You know, people come and we talk, and so he said it would be nice to have you in the community. And before I knew it, I was in a Pyramid West apartment, but I practiced. I started practicing downtown. And so one year around 1999, another person from North Lawndale who had a health organization asked me, why am I not practicing in North Lawndale? And so I said, well, that's a thought. I think I'm going to open my office in North Lawndale. And so my first act was to get involved with the community and meet people in the community. And I got involved with small grants. And so my first thing is I wanted to start teaching people about the marketing, because I was marketing my company, but I didn't tell anybody that I was a doctor. And they found out later, because I just said my name is Shemuel, and they would call me Shemuel, and then when they found out I was a doctor, they started calling me Dr. Israel. And one of the persons I met at Small Grants was Doretha Penn, and she asked me, do I like tomatoes? And first thing I said, are they homegrown? And she said, yeah, we grow them in our garden. I said, okay, tell me how I can get there, because I want some. Because I had tasted homegrown tomatoes, because I'm from the South, and I knew some tomatoes from the stores didn't taste very good to me. And so I got involved with the Greening Committee in 1999, and I started interviewing the gardeners and writing articles about them in the North Lawndale News. And then I met Velma Johnson, and Velma Johnson pulled me in a little further, and so it's been a wonderful relationship because my first thing was, before really getting fully involved with the Greening Committee, was to focus on the health part of what I wanted to do. So in 2004, we started a healthy eating and physical activity program. We got involved with the Illinois Department of Public Health, and so we set up a program where we gave 24 families each a box of produce every week, and what they had to do is give us a form that they fill out showing what exercise that they picked that they were going to do before getting the box of vegetables. And then when they got the vegetables, we had to give them a cooking class on the vegetables that they didn't know how to prepare. And one of those was like eggplants. We had so many eggplants and nobody wanted them. And so we started showing them how to make eggplant parmesan, using eggplant as the meat portion of a certain dish, stuffed eggplant, and so then people started eating eggplant. And then next was spaghetti squash. They didn't know that you can take a squash and make spaghetti. And so the next year, we decided to grow our own vegetables at the site that is now the site of UCAN, and that's where I met Annamaria. And we were on the site there with the Chicago Honey Co-op, who had 80 beehives at the time. And so we grew vegetables for 24 families. And then we decided to have a youth program. And so we called the youth program the Youth Health Ambassadors. And that was, we set it up so we trained them to be a peer education group. So we taught them to some speaking skills so that they can go and ask their peers how many servings of vegetables do you eat every day. And they were surprised to find out that some people ate 0, some people ate 1. And so we encouraged them to start out getting at least 3. But our goal was to get them to eat 5 to 9 servings. But we also taught them other skills, and they divided that. We taught them the owner's paradigm. And that was how much water they drink. They made recommendations, how much breathing they do, because sometimes we get nervous or we get angry and we don't breathe properly. How much fruit and vegetables they was getting, that was the nutritional part. How much exercise they were getting. And it really turned out to be a great group because the Board of Education liked it. The Illinois Department of Public Health loved it. And so to skip a little ahead, I've always been focused on gardening and nutrition. And one of my favorite things to do, and this actually started, I believe, in 2012. We met some farmers. I tested my soil to see what was missing, and it made my chemistry background. It made that really make sense, and the biological background, because all of these conditions and illnesses and diseases that we have, but because we don't have the minerals in our soil. Something is missing. And so it's just been a wonderful education in how all of this works, and I've heard a lot of this go around the table. I was focusing on the biological aspect of life in North Lawndale, and that's with the soil and with plants and with, animals and people. And then there's the economic side that is connected to that. So my life is like a bunch of circles. There's the social side, and so there's the political side. And I've, one thing about the Greening Committee, it felt like a family, and the family had all of these components. So I was really amazed about the people in North Lawndale. And no matter what anybody say, people from the South Side came and they said, well, you got all this stuff happening, this is a bad place to live. And I said, I don't see that. What I see is people really working together to make life better, and I really love it. And so I had, I had some a chart here that I work with all the time, and one is when I work with open lands, and when I work with NeighborSpace, one is about the importance of community gardening. And that's a circle too, community gardeners, and there's like a little map, and there's so many things that are related to community gardening. And if we really focus on that, and we focused on a lot of that, it makes, life really beautiful in the community. And there are organizations and people that I met that have really focused on different aspects of it. And I like people, when you're talking about partnership, people have different things that they are good at, so we don't have to do everything. And, I don't have to do everything. We got all of people that have all these different skills, and all we have to do is work together to bring those about. And then I had a little chart that I use about the soil and everything that, and how all this and the soil and the environment and everything works. And the young people that we have worked with, I remember a story. I remember there's a story of we were in the garden, and there was we was working with worms again. And we was working at our compost bin, and one young lady saw a lot of worms, and so she was curious about it, and said, "What do they do?" And so they go in and they eat some of the compost, they ingest it, and then they poop, and then when they poop it out, the plants get a chance to use that, and that's one of the things about mineralization. You got all these organisms in the soil that break down the minerals so the plant can use them, and the plant in turn gives them sugar, so they have a relationship. And so she said, "You mean we eat poop?" And it was and it was really hilarious, and she was really interested. She was drawn to that. And these are some kids that weren't really interested in gardening. So when they find out about life, we had another young lady, because I work in Little Village. I worked in Little Village too. She didn't like gardening at all, but once we got her in the greenhouse, I told her, this is, you have to treat the plants like they're your little baby. And so you got to feed them, you got to water them. And that's when she got into it. She said, yeah, I really like that. So sometimes you have to use analogies for the kids to really get it. Um, and then there's teaching about weeds. I love to talk about weeds and how it relates to our lives too. And and I tell them, if you got weeds in your mind, they'll choke the good thoughts. And so what you have to do is you have to sort of get rid of the weeds so they won't choke your thoughts. So the Greening Committee does, that type of work, and it does it really well. And the organizations that are connected to the Greening Committee, like NeighborSpace and Open Lands, really work with open spaces. And that's important too, to the green of North Lawndale and Lawndale in general. And that's important because open spaces give you a chance to relax and go back to nature, rejuvenate. And I'm really, strictly dedicated to the work-rest ratio and getting exercise too. So Open Lands currently, NeighborSpace currently has over 115 community gardens in 33 wards of the city. And Open Lands, NeighborSpace, I got both of them on the mind. But NeighborSpace also provides protection for the community gardens. They provide a water source so that you can water whether you're planting ornamental vegetables or whether you are planting ornamental plants or whether you're planting food. And they provide certain resources for the community gardens too. And so I just really love my relationship with them because we have a relationship with the city of Chicago, with the Park District, and with the Forest Preserve to really make this happen and come about. And I know that people have come from other cities and they really want to know about NeighborSpace because they think it's really unusual to have someone to protect their spaces when they're gardening. And so lastly, I want to say the reward I get out of that is to see people, really walk away healthy. I started this as a back door. I said, well, if people want get good nutrition by taking vitamins and minerals, then if I make sure that the soil has it, then that's like the back door to me if you want to ingest that. So so that's how we contribute. And we got the Bionutrient Food Association has about 60 growers, and we have a farmer, and they're members of Botanic Gardens also have taken it, Windy City Harvest. And it's a nice course, and we really need to, focus on getting good nutrition, and that's what we've contributed to greening. So I'd like to say happy birthday, happy birthday, Lawndale. Happy 150th birthday. And we want to see great things happen, and we do believe great things will happen and continue to happen. And I just really want to continue to be a part of that.
As Anna said, I'm the Vice President at I Am Able Center for Family Development, and I'm also the supervisor for the TRIM program, which is a trauma response and intervention movement, which responds to, removes, reduces trauma 8 blocks at a time. And our first 8-block sector is located kind of right across the street. It runs from Central Park to Ridgeway, Ogden Avenue to 16th Street. And so even though we say 8 blocks at a time, there's actually 11 blocks that are over there. And we work very closely with people who live in those blocks to provide them supportive services and resources. How I ended up in North Lawndale. So I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Lived in Kansas City for 12 years, both Kansas and Missouri. And in 92, I believe it was, Pastor Casey, who's now one of the pastors at Lawndale Christian Community Church, moved here to work in Lawndale. I'd never heard of Lawndale, really. This was even before Oprah was really big, so I wasn't even stuck on Chicago. But my husband came up here for a weekend to visit Pastor Casey, and he fell in love with Lawndale. And he said, I want to move to Chicago. And I had to be convinced, but we had to sell our house. We had to find a place to live. We had to find daycare for Taylor. We had to find a place to live that would let us keep our dog. I would have to find a job. All of these things happened in about 90 days. So it made it kind of difficult for me to say no. So we packed up and moved here over on 2224 South Ridgeway. And so we came here to get more involved with that ministry, the commitment that they had to community. My husband became involved with Hope House during that time. He does Bible study there every Friday morning at 6:30 a.m. Who makes a commitment to do anything on a Friday at 6:30? It kind of messes up your Thursday a little bit, and you're too tired on Friday to do very much of anything else. But he's been doing that for over 20 years. And so when Anna and I had this opportunity to work on the garden, I could go to Hope House because I'm actively involved in that church. My husband has relationships with all of those men, and they're always committed to working to make a difference. Anna's right. We met at a CAPS meeting. I didn't know that was her first CAPS meeting, but when she said feng shui, I was all over that. I'm like, don't people always ask you about feng shui? She's like, no, nobody knows what that is. But I was on like my third book. And because I'm a very visual person and very mindful of space, I was really interested in that. But the other benefit was that Anna was a master gardener. So, of course, I followed her to her house to learn more about the feng shui and saw the garden, which was absolutely beautiful. My thing about that is that if the grocery stores ever had to close down in the neighborhood, Anna says they have 3 days' worth of food, but I would go directly to her house because I know she's growing everything in that backyard. So when I worked at Lawndale Christian Development Corporation, we worked on a number of safety initiatives. And so safety for me had to do with being mindful of your environment. We did organizing training. It was about building relationships with people. And so Anna was kind enough to come to the organizing training class that we did. And we had already worked on the Peace Path. LCDC did the MLK Exhibit Center, MLK Apartments. I'm sure everybody knows that Dr. King lived in North Lawndale, one of the only places he lived outside of Atlanta. And so there was a vacant lot down the street. We did organizing training, and because I was so into space, I always wanted to pick up trash and clean up things. So I wanted to clean up the lot that was across the street from Lawndale Foods and embarrass the people who just drop trash out there randomly every day, get some kids, and we were going to be over there all the time. But because Anna was a master gardener, she's like, we can grow some food over there. And so we just kind of took over this lot. We didn't ask permission from anybody because nobody was taking care of it. Nobody was doing anything with it. Anna found resources, found some free stuff. I got the Hope House guys, and the first time we put those boxes down, it was snowing, and an 18-wheeler pulled up on that parking lot. They were packed like 2 stories high almost. I was a nervous wreck because when they were trying to get them off the truck, I remember one of the gentlemen who helped us, he's still at the church. His head was twisted in the weirdest place trying to get that box off that top of that thing to get it. It was very scary, but they were persistent and such hard worker. I still have pictures of even that. And so we set up the perimeter for the space, found other resources. I have to thank Anna and Dr. Israel for everything I know about greening now in this aspect of my life. I've learned from them. But I'm reminded that my grandparents on both my parents' sides were very avid gardeners. I remember as a kid being forced to work in my grandmother's garden. That was not something you did for fun back in the day. And you just snatch a tomato off the vine, wipe it off your pants, and just start eating it. My grandfather had a community garden, and in fact, when he died well into his 80s, he was actually working in the garden, planting onions, providing food, and had a heart attack that day. But that's not a bad thing because he was doing something that he truly loved. He was making a difference for his community. He had a green thumb. He had flowers, roses, plants, everything all over his yard. I never really thought that the relationship that I have with Anna and Dr. Israel would kind of bring that back around and make that a central part of my life and what I do now. When I think about, let's see, the reward of having a greening business or a company, I guess I can say that I have that. Working closely with Anna and Dr. Israel and so many other organizations, Gardeneers. I'm still waiting for my second round of potato tacos. They come to the festivals that we do at I Am Able. We are very community oriented and providing residents with information and resources and services that they may not know about. And we talk about the farm here on Ogden. My husband is on the board at Lawndale Christian Health Center, so he comes over here and buys food. And personally, I've been vegan now for 7 years, so I think working with Anna and Dr. Israel have given me a clear understanding about food and nutrition and how it impacts your life. And I also being sensitive to the issues and challenges that we have as a food desert here in North Lawndale, and the garden that we put over on 16th and Ridgeway, once again, we just kind of took that land and just planted some stuff. And so because we weren't really trying to sell anything, we wanted to give people an opportunity to learn how to have their own gardens, how to grow their own food. We had kids who would come in the garden and snatch the plants out just because they were playing. We realized later it was because on 16th Street at that time, it was probably the only clean, kind of remotely safe looking place where they thought it was a playground probably. But we would teach the parents that if we let them keep the food in the ground, it can grow and you can eat it. So we would replant those things every time we found them over there. But it was an opportunity to connect to people who lived there. People couldn't get healthy food. I realized from what I learned with Dr. Israel, our food was better than organic even because of the minerals and the other things that he would put in there. And so people had tomatoes, they had sweet potatoes, they had greens, we had flowers, we had berries and apples and all sorts of things. And I can remember my first excitement at seeing a worm too. Me and Bruce. And, you know, normally you would see those kind of, and you'd just be stomping on them. Okay, don't leave me out here hanging. Everybody stomped on one at some point. But now those things, I realized how important that was for our growth. Bees, you know, that was something that you were just afraid of, but now I realize that if we don't have bees, we don't eat. And so I was really touched when we would just teach them, come and get food if you want it, just please try not to hurt the garden so it can continue to grow. And at the end of the season, remember that one year we had like 200 pounds of sweet potatoes and tomatoes that we passed out in the neighborhood. We wrote grants and provided jobs for young people. Eric Hussey, who Anna mentioned earlier, went on to get training, I think, through Windy City Harvest and became a master gardener. So I got to see greening and gardening is not only about food, but economic power, health, community. We had a woman who lived down the street from the garden who was in her 70s, and she was a breast cancer survivor. And so one of those days at the end of the year, we were out passing out our vegetables and stuff because we didn't want our food to go to waste. And she was like, no, baby, I already got my tomatoes. They like ripening in the window. I'm good. And so I was really excited that people had kind of claimed that space for themselves too. And we saw that education as a really important part of the difference that we made in the community. Let's see, I support how I believe and take pride in the community. Why? So I moved here 26 years ago, and I think initially I thought about the skills or talents that I might have and what I was going to bring to the neighborhood and how I was going to make a difference. But the biggest blessing for me has been just the people and the relationships that I have that have become so important for me. It became less about what I could do, but what I could learn and how I benefited from people, and how people with few resources, few financial opportunities, and I mean, there's a lot of great things that are happening in Lawndale, but in so many ways we've been underserved and overlooked. And in spite of that, people have come together and made a significant and an awesome difference. I mean, I can still remember when me and Anna were sitting on that corner like, what are we going to do with that lot over there? And here we provided, we got funding from Allstate on a number of different occasions. We got, I Am Able got involved and allowed us to write a grant to employ those young people that worked in the garden. Just like May said, they didn't know what vegetables and fruit were, and we took them to Inspiration Kitchen and took them over to Green Tomato, places that actually grew food and used that in their in what they could eat every day. So I'm really excited about the opportunity for me to learn and to play a part in that. Is there anything I missed, Anna? Because she knows all my stories and stuff. I could be here for a minute. And Paul, who's been a great friend and somebody who's been a real inspiration in recognizing and keeping Lawndale in the forefront. I'm just excited about not only what has happened, but the potential that I see coming from initiatives like this and from everybody's commitment to make a difference in our neighborhood. And so to that end, I will say happy 150th birthday, North Lawndale. I'm excited to be a part of all the wonderful things that are coming down the pipe.
The beautification that you see on 16th Street now in Roosevelt Road, I mean, it's amazing. And partly thanks to Annamaria, because she like in the midst of a lot of this stuff. So I can remember like one time when I wanted to have a garden at my daughter's school, and I called Annamaria, and she just came just like that, and we put all those plants out there. And I mean, I'm so grateful for that, because in this community it's a lot of people, but we can only get this work done with collaboration. And sitting here at this table tonight, I can clearly see that the Green and people of North Lawndale have really collaborated with each other, had each other's back, and now look at North Lawndale. It's beautiful, and it's getting even better because more greenery is coming. So with that being said, I'm just going to say thank you guys, and thank you.